honk of Thatcher's deed.
Warning. An infant child is about to divulge into his highly specific nostalgia and picky artistic tastes. You've been warned. The idea of a virtual band sounds like something that'd be a stereotype of the 21st century in some movie from the 80s or 90s. Of course, the not real band has existed before. Your great-great-granddad likely fucked in his Model T to Alvin and the Chipmunks or the Archies. But the idea of having a band whose entire persona is built around the internet, computers, fucking electricity is a wild idea. And when you watched Alvin and the Archies on your radio during an air raid, you had no delusions that they could exist. Of course, Alvin isn't fucking real. The simulation couldn't handle it. Yet. But if anything, these proto-virtual bands were made solely for marketing purposes. Hell, the Archies were an expansion of an already existing property. Shout out to the Archies for having a bigger expanded universe than Marvel. And besides that, tell me Alvin and the Chipmunks wasn't made, at first, with the sole intent of profit in mind, with the music being a wholly optional side thing. Another thing, too, about virtual bands is that they're hard to maintain. Not only do you need to be a competent musician, but also a competent animator, and sometimes a competent writer if you want to expand the lore of your world. Point is, it takes more than your little garage band with your middle school buds, Cheese and Chet, to maintain a virtual band. You need to be a Renaissance man. Have a team of talented individuals next to you. So that's why, despite how artistically fruitful a virtual band can be, they're an idea with such high artistic, time, and financial demands. It's why it's an idea that is so rarely ever put together. But I think with the advent of 3D animation software becoming more accessible and easy to use, as can be shown with the growing amount of anime girl streamers, I think we may soon start seeing a greater number of virtual bands and artists. But I'm not here to speculate on where the concept of virtual band is going in the future. I'm here to talk about where they already are. And because you're all literate, at least I can only hope, one of the only groups to successfully maintain a consistent and prosperous career as a virtual band is Gorillaz, the spunk formation of Damon Albarn, who us Americans know as the Woohoo, and illustrator Jamie Hewlett, best known for his comic Tank Girl. A more perfect collision couldn't have happened. A pre-established and talented musician, a pre-established and talented artist, along with a shared spite of MTV and the music industry, meaning they both cared more about art than profits. Initially. And the two did well. And what all happy gay men in relationships do, adopt a black and Asian kid, a blind kid, and a green. Now, I'm not actually here to talk about the music and Gorillaz' career overall. I'm here to talk about something I may be a bit more passionate about than music. Aesthetics. If you'll tolerate my sappiness for a minute, I love to draw for basically my entire life. Like, I know, everyone does, but I was fucking prolific as an 8-year-old. I drew pages on pages of poorly written, arranged, and especially poorly drawn comics on a near daily basis. I also had this weird habit of coming up with endings of stories in my head, then drawing those out, then making comics, working out the plot backwards. Anyways, as a kid, I was very perceptive to my surroundings. Not in the, when mommy and daddy yell at each other, I knew something was wrong, perceptive, but quite literally perceptive to my environment. The way trees created shade and how the light shone through them at certain times of day. No matter how well mowed the lawn is, you could always find some kind of life within it. The way the house in my sterile suburb went on and on with little variation. I would pick on the materials of my carpet, taking in their textures. I began associating smells with how spiritual someone was, with how rich or poor they were, and I used it to judge how safe I should feel in an environment. I fell in love with late-night drives through the rain alone on the highway with high-up streetlights and headlights smeared in incandescence. I had become aware of not only the way my senses created both the abstract emotions of a room and the palpable physical reality of it, but also my own place in it, and how it relates to others around me, or even better, how my presence doesn't affect them at all, how life is continually going even though I'm not looking. All this is to say, even though I'm a shitty artist, I like to think I have an innate ability to recognize vibes. Wanna know how I know that? Because I smell like incense and box wine. So when I say early Gorillaz music videos are like my shit, that means you know it is really the shit. And this may be preaching to the choir, but in the case you aren't convinced or haven't thought that much on this subject, then allow me to divulge into my autistic hyperfixation on the Gorillaz designs from their self-titled and why it is factually the shit. We're back in the 2000s, an excuse for me to put up some shallow Y2K aesthetic stuff to tingle your easily triggered synapses of your unevolved ape skull. Tricked you. You're actually looking at a worn-down urban Britain circa the year, that weird time post-Monica Lewinsky getting throated and before 9/11 when the most pressing matter in America was stem cells. You know, the good old days. And this is when Gorillaz dropped their first music video for Tomorrow Comes Today, and boom, it's a slam dunk from the 50-yard line, graffiti in the character eyes, zooming out on our main man Tootie, rocking a tight fit I may add, looking like he hasn't slept since God made the sun. A staple of late 90s and early 2000s character designs is present here too, and can you spot it? No, not the crushed fetus cells.
Come on, stem cells, work your astounding scientific nonsense.
I'm talking about them thick fucking lines. Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab,
Jet Set Radio!
Emas. Powerpuff Girls has actually been canon in Gorillaz, and Gorillaz is canon in Powerpuff Girls. You can look it up. I didn't know that. I know this has been existing before that one time they added the fucking Green Man Gang like 2 years ago into the band. If your outlines aren't as thick as the Wailing Wall, then it isn't fucking kosher. Something I miss a lot in modern Gorillaz is a lot of the earthier colors they use. Like, I get pastels are the wave right now, and it comes from an artistic reaction to the grittiness of a lot of media from the 2000s and early 2010s. Ejemplo uno, Gears of War ruining an entire generation of consoles. But boy, oh boy, do I miss those more grounded, urban, and grungier colors and stylistic sensibilities from back in the day of the unwashed stoner skater bro who wore skinny jeans, a loose-fitting flannel shirt with a Grateful Dead tee under that, as opposed to now with the opiate addict skater who wears whatever Tyler the Creator wore last. Basically, what I'm trying to say is bring back Vomit Brown Murdoch. Grape Jolly Rancher Murdoch isn't canon anymore. I won't be referring back much to modern Gorillaz because it's not my nostalgia. And it's gorgeous by all means, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't hit like it used to, and I know why. It's all a case of production value. Obviously, as time goes on, money is made, tech is improved, things will look better, and to be fair, sometimes shitty things look better. In the same way old 3D models have a certain appeal to them, like the shy kid in the back of the class who brought his PSP. It's awkward, but hey, kiddo's doing his best. I have to say, old Gorillaz looks awkward by any means, it still holds up amazingly well. Sure, the odd 3D model is off-putting, but otherwise, classy shit. However, it's comparatively bare. Now, sticking to Tomorrow Comes Today, it's easily their barest music video to date. Characters still over a slideshow of a mostly night location in urban England, with characters sometimes put into the background as parts of the environment. Something Jamie Hewlett and his team have come to master in modern Gorillaz. But God, the vibe this video creates, it's far more effective than most of the videos Gorillaz do now. It creates the sly, skeezy atmosphere, telling you that they're real underground, one with the streets and the nightlife. The way the lights and concrete blur together as a scraggly and dejected man with 2 black holes for eyes murmurs out one of the best songs in Gorillaz' entire catalog. Of course, we'd upgrade from Baby's first slideshow to something more substantive with the next 3 music videos from this era, Rock the House, 192000, and Clint Eastwood, all iconic in their own manner. Next to Feel Good Inc., Clint Eastwood is easily the most popular song put out by Gorillaz, and its music video reflects that with its pretty iconic amongst the soy-fed dick-tucking youths. It's rather simple when going back to it. The boys performing outside what would later become the location of their fictional Kong Studios, a spooky graveyard of early 2000s 3D models, or a modern SFM Overwatch Widowmaker butt job video. Not a lot really goes on here, a lot of repeated animations and plain backgrounds, but again, what it lacks in complexity and content, it makes up for considerably in unwavering style, and also probably some of the best lip syncing I've seen in any animation period. Just look at the storyboards, bro. Like, even then, they were putting a lot into that shit. Rock the House is a really underappreciated music video in my opinion. It's essentially the spiritual successor to Clint Eastwood, with it being the second and final appearance of Del the Funky Homo Sapien in the expanded Gorillaz verse. This time, he's a honkin' 3D behemoth covered in rugby armor or whatever made-up sport the British made. This video is a lot brighter and springy compared to Clint Eastwood, and a lot more reliant on 3D models, which have actually aged pretty gracefully. You have the monkey cheerleader sex dolls, kind of like some Patriot Pops, which take the place of Clint Eastwood's zombie monkeys, but a lot more cheeky, giving the band some rah-rahs while they get pelted with what a cop would call a proper amount of retaliatory force. This video is also the first to show off the insides of Kong Studios, with it making a Shining reference in the year 2001, which I can't tell if I'm supposed to write up a TV Tropes page about it, or just accept it as it is. As Noodle goes through the building on a Tonka trike, we open on this area, which I can only assume is some kind of gymnasia. Considering the light splashes of monkey sex doll cheerleaders with just a spoonful of bloom that gives the room a sense of place. The way the light bounces off the white concrete walls and reflects back onto the characters, slathering them in the haze like butter. It's quite literally the only good use of bloom in anything ever made in the 2000s, and maybe even now. It makes the video feel a lot brighter and perfectly complements the more upbeat nature of the song and video overall. Yes, I'm complimenting a literal iMovie effect. I'm an asshole, I know, but I'm using this to drive into the point, into your unfunky, Homo erectus brain that Gorillaz strive off these simple choices in aesthetics. I would be remiss not to mention the stellar posing work too. Sure, this video has more frames of animation compared to the last two offerings, but it's still very limited, but it does a great job showing off the character's character. 2D dodges these balls with inelegance and almost automatically fucks up, showing him to be a klutz always doomed to fail, and Murdoch is an overconfident sexual deviant. Noodle pretty much doesn't get any characterization besides Weird Japanese Baby, and honestly her whole arc over the band's career could be summed up as Weird Japanese Baby, Weirder Japanese Baby, Weird Japanese Robot, and hot. And poor Russell, man, he gets big? That's about it. Man. On the subject of characterization, one of my biggest complaints of modern Gorillaz, and maybe Gorillaz overall, is possibly the most petty shit you will ever hear. Oh, you don't think so? Okay, try this on. Modern Gorillaz has changed 2D from a competent but low-key cool and threatening half-wit to a nervous wreck half-wit, despite how he's presented in music videos as being cool and collected, and maybe a little bit poetic because he's literally the band's fucking singer.
Can't kill it? What do you mean can't kill it? I'll show you how to kill me. All you grab the damn thing and now takes face. No!
I know, right? You just want to, punch me in the face. It's like magic. The most characterization we get during this time were these gorilla bites. And man, I wish they made more of these and... Mr. G, I'm so sorry for this. I swear this was an accident. I didn't mean to upset the party or the shareholders with such degeneracy.
政党将原谅这个犯规的薄荷男孩，但是请注意，重犯者不会那么宽容。
谢谢你，谢上。These bites are some of the most characterization Russell has ever gotten, and it's mad cute.
I like it, cut G.
And it shows the interpersonal relationships of the characters very well. 2D is the resident goofball / punching bag. Murdoch has pretty much been the same since the start, so I guess props for that. Noodle is portrayed as an overqualified and underestimated little girl, and Russell is probably the most grounded of the group with a no-nonsense Brooklyn attitude.
Face Mounties, face!
Hey, yo, Mons, where my eel at? Where's my eel? Where my eel?
It don't feel too good.
But these traits are rarely iterated upon, especially now where the most characterization outside of music videos are fucking watch ads, which speaks to the larger Gorillaz sold out narrative peddled by me and other members of the global Jewish cabal. But let's keep to the good times. The 192000 video is probably the most personal video to me, not because of some sort of irrational female emotions, God no, because of its setting of a winding empty road and an arid void that I dream about a lot for some reason. I think, barreling down an empty road with nothing but concrete and rubber keeping me to the ground is just a nice dream to have. Its architecture, comically impossible, only making it more uncanny with its attempts to be textured and appear as an actual road, sort of like the euthanasia coaster, but fully realized. It's a simple concept for a grounded, fantastical setting and a great flipping of the music video convention of driving and car fetishism, not even to mention the actual buggy, which is an icon of the band at this point, adorning the cover of their debut album. This 3D Jeep that looks alright until you get to the 3D models they put inside of the Jeep when shot at a distance, which are, charming at best. along with little details that just bring everything together. More obvious things like references to The Shining and Friday the 13th, the way the time of day shifts throughout the video, and more subtle things like the way Murdoch flips his toothpick along to the beat. It's all wonderful stuff. Now I have other videos to work on, so let's wrap this up. I could talk at length about both the music and visual components of Gorillaz and how they've evolved and the weird offshoots they took, like that time after Humans came out and they used a bunch of shitty motion capture to make music videos and promo material, which kind of a good throwback because, as I said, I like shitty. And I'm overall extremely intrigued by the rare occurrences of virtual bands that we have, and I would love to just make a whole video on the concept itself. But moving on, I want to give an abridged summary of my thoughts on Gorillaz since their debut. Demon Days is easily the peak of their visual prowess. Everything I love about the self-titled era of music videos is expanded upon tenfold, while ironically I think the album itself is like mid compared to like both the self-titled and Plastic Beach, and on the subject of Plastic Beach, it's their best album, just full stop. But with its increased production value, it leads me losing considerable interest. It's all stellar stuff, and they do a lot of experimentation, like a fully realistic 3D Murdoch, which is certainly an artistic direction. And then they had Do Ya Thing, which I'll count as the fall era, which capped off that golden age despite coming out after a mid-album. But after that, shit changed. They took a break, and then came out with Humans, which I have a soft spot for, and I still like a lot of the shit off of there. But, you know, it's fucking mid. But now, we're in the now in the current Song Machine era, which has probably actually been the Gorillaz' most active in terms of visual output. But mostly because of, say it with me now, capitalism. Ass! What? Nothing. Good night?